basically like a review.
Anyway, thank you so much.
Everybody agrees.
Welcome to the group chat. Welcome to Group Chat, a show on the two-way platform. I am joined by my wonderful, amazing co-hosts, conservative Emma Jo Morris, moderate Democrat Dan Turrentine, progressive Nina Turner, and Robby Soave, our resident libertarian representing 3% of Americans.
Oh, spicy.
Yeah, all right.
I don't know why. I can never help myself. I have to point that out.
We're up to 3 now?
Well, he's...
Or by the end of the
It's all because of you, Robby.
Unlike what I just did to my friend Robby, this show, like the platform, reflects peace, love, and understanding and the presumption of grace for all. And we are so thrilled that you are here with us. As always, if you are joining us on the two-way platform, please do feel free to join the conversation. We love hearing from you guys. Raise your digital hand, and we will get you in on the conversation. We're going to start by talking about the redistricting in Texas and the efforts in California, and then we're going to talk about crime. So if you have thoughts about either of these two issues, which are really big issues nationally, I think, and really everybody's talking about, jump in the conversation. We would love to have you, and you can have your say as well. All right. So on the redistricting. So last week's story, the week before, I don't remember exactly when it was, Texas Democrats fled the state because Donald Trump had asked the Republicans to redistrict. He wanted 5 new districts, and very interestingly and often left out of the story was the fact that 4 of the 5 were majority Hispanic. Yep. And it really reflected this kind of new, bravado in the party. Trump won big with Hispanics in Texas, as he did nationally. And the idea was he thinks he can keep these voters. Now, honestly, I think that's up for debate, but they don't think so. So the Democrats were forced to come back. They voted on this. They voted 88 to 52 along party lines, and Texas approved the new congressional maps. Now, in response to this, Democrats have now taken up this clarion call and are trying to do their own districting efforts, including, perhaps most prominently, Gavin Newsom, who is trying to position himself as, the Democrat in 2028. And he's using this as a kind of jumping off point. He's taken to Twitter to mock Donald Trump very often on the redistricting front. So let's put up, here you can see element 1. These are the new Texas maps. We can compare the old Texas district map with the new one. The new one has 5 new Republican districts. That is a lot of red. And so now Newsom is proposing, let's look at element 2, a new map for California, which would get the Democrats 5 seats. They would get 5 more seats in California if the Democratic redistricting goes through. Now, it's not a it's not a home run, a sure thing, a slam dunk, but they are going to do their best to do it. Polling seems ambivalent to positive, although it's not clear exactly how Californians are going to respond to that. There's often a lot of pushback on efforts like this that feel very politicized on behalf of California voters. Okay, so that's the state of play right now. And I guess the question is, let's start with this. The Democrats seem to be wanting to have it both ways. On the one hand, they keep calling it cheating that the Republicans are trying to get more seats in Texas. And then they are turning around and doing the exact same thing on their own behalf. Robby, are they trying to have their cake and eat it too?
I mean, obviously, yes, but there's this isn't inherently a political question. There's no natural or fair way to do, you could, I guess, just make a grid and then whoever, but that would then overrepresent, the population centers would just all be in the same grid. But there's no natural or correct way to do this. And the reality is that we now live in a very polarized political environment. And frankly, what concerns me most is that Republicans and Democrats who are in Congress actually have an incentive to even be on the same side a little bit about this, because what do they want? They all want. The elected Republicans and Democrats share an interest in safe, safe districts for the people in them. So what we're going to see increasingly, I would predict, is actual, performative outrage over, well, oh, you're going to gerrymander, so then we're going to gerrymander our state, and then this state's going to gerrymander a response down the line. But really, behind the scenes, they're all happy with it because they all want to create safe districts. They can agree, all right, in this state is a majority, this is a blue state, so 4 of the seats are for Democrats and 1's for Republican. We'll draw it so that nobody has to face any competition. We're all happy. That will not be good for voters.
Okay, so Nina, here's my question. Is this not actually going to be good for example, progressives? Because doesn't a situation where most seats are safe in terms of the party mean that the primaries are actually going to be more intense because you'll be pitting 2 people from the same party against each other? And this would actually give people who are further to the left or further to the right more of a shot than when it's a Democrat against a Republican, and then the Democrats want to go with the safer, more moderate primary because they think they'll be able to win the general.
Maybe strategically, but I don't care. I'm sure you're not surprised. I'm with Robby 100% on this. This is, I was talking to Dr. Butch Ware, who's of the Green Party running for governor in California, and we were text talking. This consolidates power. One is a power grab by both Republicans and Democrats. I don't agree with partisan gerrymandering at all. And as somebody that voted on, after the 2010 in the Ohio legislature and voted against maps, to Robby's point, the full outrage from Democrats only lasted a little bit. Meanwhile, they're calling and talking about me like a dog because I refused to vote for those maps, because it created permanent, safe Republican seats, permanent, safe Democrat seats. Robby is absolutely right. I don't know if you were in those rooms, Robby, but that's where Democrats and Republicans come together. They don't care. They don't give a damn about the voters. So for me, absolutely not. So Dr. Butch Ware and I were going back and forth. So it's consolidation of power, which he agreed. We agree. And also, it is going to permanently disenfranchise voters. So my grandmother would say, who only had a 3rd grade education, if somebody else jumps off the bridge, you jump in too. It is wrong. I understand the gut kind of pure fight fire with fire political instinct. I'm not naive to that. So I want people to understand. I understand it. But this is not the way to go. And ultimately, the voter or the residents that live in these respective districts are going to get hurt. And my fear is that it is going to encroach on the Voting Rights Act as well, and that the African-American community that has already been hurt by how this country was founded is going to be further hurt by Democrats playing games with Republicans.
So Dan, you keep bringing up something very important, I think, which is that the Democratic base wants to see fight right now.
Yep.
Is that what this is about at the end of the day?
California's response, sure. I mean, as you said, this started this year when the Trump White House called the Texas delegation in and said, hey, can you guys try to squeeze out 5 more districts? They want to hold the House. They have every right to do this, right? It is not normal to do it mid-decade, but it has been tried before. Actually, even in Texas, Tom DeLay famously tried to do it in the 2000s. Both parties have been looking and hunting for seats. In 2010, we did it in New York, we did it in Illinois, we did it in Maryland. And in 2000, it was the Republicans in Florida and Pennsylvania, Ohio, other states. This is as old as the Republic itself. Our Constitution leaves it to the states to do apportionment and, kind of to draw these lines. And I think the base does want to fight it, and we have every right to fight it. And I think Kathy Hochul's going to try. I don't know if they can truly squeeze another seat out of Maryland, but they may try. I think the bigger thing is for Gavin Newsom, this goes to Nina's frustration with him, is I don't think this is going to win at the ballot. I think California is going to vote this down.
Wow.
The poll that Newsom put out that said that it was popular, if you looked at the fine print, it was popular when voters were educated about the issue, which is to say, if I asked you, do you approve or disapprove of changing the law, my bet is the poll, there was a lot more no's. But if I say, do you approve or disapprove of changing our law because Donald Trump is trying to, keep the House in Texas, oh gosh darn it, then I'm with this. And our colleague Mark Halpern on 2A Tonight last night had a California strategist who said she's heard that poll showed much less support than the Newsom people are saying. You said it. Voting no is easier than voting yes. The history of these ballot initiatives is not great. I think this will go down. But Newsom will get credit for trying.
Emma, I mean, Republican voters must be so excited to see the party at Trump's behest wielding power. I mean, it's been a rump party for so long.
On what issue are you talking about now? I'm sorry.
Exactly.
I mean, tell us what that is like. Yeah, like within, like what the energy is like, and how Republicans are responding to the Democrats' kind of, Mara, you're cheating, and we're going to do it too. I mean, what does this look like from where you're sitting?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, that's part of the reason why, aside from the policies, is the attitude, which is why Trump is so popular among Republicans. It's Republican voters, I think, in the base feel like they've elected Republicans all these different times, and they've always been afraid to wield power because what about the principle and what about the precedent and what happens when Democrats get the power? But I think really, you know, what happened was in the meantime, while Biden was president, they tried to like put Trump in jail for 6,000 years. So. And bankrupt him and his entire family. So, you know, the principle and the precedent and, you know, what will happen if all of that stuff kind of just became silly after that, because it was this extremely aggressive and totalitarian, at least in the perception of the right, and I think in the perception of most fair-minded people, that this was completely out of control. This was total abuse of power and disregard for norms. And then Trump comes in and it's like, well, we've disregarded the norms, so we are going to actually have power and wield it. And it's teaching and I think empowering Republicans and future Republican leaders to not be afraid to govern. There's this thing on the right where it's like, you know, we want to reduce the amount of presence that the government has in people's lives. We don't want to use the government to control people. That's not our flavor. We don't like that. It's like, well, no, because we have an opposition now who is not afraid to wield that power and is not afraid to get it in your face. So now we have to use it to kind of push them back and enforce boundaries.
Is there a limit to that? We know that Trump is now that there's been this push to kind of investigate people, Adam Schiff, Letitia James, now Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook.
Yeah.
A lot of people see this as just like pure revenge, like tit for tat. They tried to put Trump in prison, and now he's going after some of his big critics. Does any of that make you uncomfortable? Like, is it going too far? Is that revenge? Like,
no, you know, I think I would agree. Like, I've been asked this a few times, and I feel like we actually spoke about this last week. I would say that if like what they did to Trump, we're basically fabricating or kind of like
they did to the Clintons too.
Maybe, I don't know. I was literally not.
Oh, I feel old hearing that statement. Okay, yes.
But as far as I've seen, like as a thinking sentient human being, you know, I would say that if it was like in New York, where they basically took a victimless crime and turned it into like a felony or something. You know, but this is not the case here. They found legitimate, it seems, again, these people haven't been tried, you know, so I can't say, but it appears that they have found legitimate crimes here in looking, and the reason why they were looking at these people in the first place is because they were investigating weaponization. Keep in mind, they did not say, oh, here's a man, now I'm going to find a crime, Robby. I'm looking at Robby now, he's in my sight, so now I'm going to go through his life.
Are you sure about that?
I can confidently assert I committed a crime.
I don't know.
I saw the jeans you just bought. But yeah, it wasn't.
I mean, Emma, this
I don't know about the Fed governor.
Yeah,
I don't know if the Fed governor, if that
person.
was just a happenstance. I believe he wants to get her off. He wants to put his own people in there to lower interest rates. And there is an allegation that people went into government files hunting for something on her. And that would be a new line. It has been done to candidates, the Clintons, you know, Donald Trump, going now and saying, I want to get that senator, I want to get that, you know, board member. Oh boy, that is new ground. And I mean, I wonder how a lot of senators feel, you know, go on across the dais. If they went through everyone's mortgage and financial statements at the IRS,
maybe the way that he's doing it might be,
know,
but
like,
this kind of revenge, using power in this way, is not new. I mean, we look at J. Edgar Hoover, the files, the
100%.
Hoover
That's what I was
files,
thinking, the same thing.
the way that he did not only elect this, but what he did to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, people like
100%.
Rosa Parks and other black leaders, both known and not so well known, just because they were fighting for black liberation, the Black Panthers. And then he had a file on elected officials and also appointees that he was willing to use. So maybe for people coming into the 21st century thought this seems new, but none of this is new for politicians. This isn't all the way they do it. Do they do it up front like President Trump, or do they do it behind the scenes? But this has been done before.
But don't you agree that what they did in the 60s and 70s, Hoover paid a huge price in history?
Not high enough.
Well, and then they passed all those laws after Watergate when a lot of this stuff started coming out. Now they've been undone in the last few years. So, I mean, I think there was, to say that that has always been going on in the way that it currently appears to be happening, I would say is not normal.
One of my mentors used to say, it doesn't matter whether you meant to kill me on purpose or by accident. Dead is dead. So if you gently do it or if you do it aggressively, my point is that there are bodies that lay in the wake of people who have used their political power to ruin other people's life, whether it was in the shadows or in the light.
That's a good point.
Robby, where are you on this?
Yeah, this
Nina's
is
reaction to that, just for 1 second, which ties back exactly to the point that I was making and what this all is they weaponize the government against Trump and against his movement and against his supporters. And this all didn't happen out of the blue. It happened when he started running for president again, after they didn't take him out after all of the January 6th investigations and stuff. And the natural impulse, when you've seen a grotesque violation of somebody's rights and weaponization of the federal government against them, or state governments in some cases, is to seek justice for that betrayal of the law. And that's exactly what is going on now with Schiff, with Tisch. That's exactly what's
So the
going
question, Robby, is it justice or is it revenge?
Purely retaliatory investigations of people, I mean, they, by their very nature, lack some legitimacy. My issue is, I think this is very difficult because our criminal code is so complex, our tax laws, not that I'm so sympathetic or I feel sorry for politicians and political figures, but navigating campaign finance rules is genuinely difficult and taxing, and by the way, punishes people disproportionately who are seeking office for the first time, who are not as familiar with the system and the ins and outs of it. So it is simultaneously the case that it's very easy to pursue an investigation against anyone in government because somewhere you'll find that they filled out some form properly, or they classified some house properly, because it's just so complicated. But I also don't want to let people off the hook for things, and it gets difficult. You shouldn't have less protection because you happen to be a political figure than the average person would have if they accidentally committed one of these crimes, on one hand. On the other hand, you shouldn't just be subjected to arbitrary things going after you because you are a political figure, and I certainly understand how Trump supporters feel. I was maybe not as skeptical as you, but probably 80% of the way you feel about this, I feel about it too. For a lot of it, I thought actually impeachment was the remedy for if people feel that he violated his oath to office. Well, then what's supposed to happen is the House votes on that and the Senate holds a trial. They did that. He got off. Oh, well, to me, that was the end of the thing. You can't try to get through the criminal justice system something that we had a system for this and it didn't hold him accountable. Sorry.
Well, and I would add, too, that
whatever.
we paid a huge price for what we did. So we lost voters because of...
Yes, you did.
Yes, because of Letitia James going after him on a, mortgage document or inflating stuff 20 years ago, because they went after him on the papers he took when he left office. Voters were revolted by our efforts. So there's a little bit of a warning that while the base may say get him, right, get revenge, get justice, like our base said, get him, Trump, stop him. The average voter, I think Republicans run the risk, it starts to look out of control. And I think Democrats' message in the midterms of we will be a check on power is incredibly powerful to the average person.
Well, I think it's incredibly not powerful to the average person exactly for all of this stuff. And again, like, total respectfully disagree with you, but all this, we started this conversation, if anyone has a long memory, we started this conversation about gerrymandering, and what are the Democrats talking about when they talk about the gerrymandering is we're preserving democracy, this is assault on democracy.
Absurd, yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, are you serious?
Yeah,
you care about democracy? Are you serious? And they in part did lose that election in 2024 based on totally shredding all respect for people's right to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they turn around now because he's trying to gerrymander in Texas, and this is a fight for democracy, which I think everyone is so sick of that line, which is so fake.
Liberal
agree with you on
philosophers and thinkers in the pages of the New York Times will continue to write op-eds saying abolish the Senate, abolish the Electoral College, which, like, I'm not so married to our institutions, but you can't simultaneously say you're for that and also we must defend the status quo of democracy at all times.
Okay, but Emma, so Nina said she thinks that, paraphrasing, tell me if this is accurate, it sounded like you were saying you think the Democrats need to take the high road on redistricting because it's, BS and gerrymandering is wrong. And even if the Republicans do it, you don't turn around and say it's wrong and we do it. But can you not say, like to me, Trump, throughout the campaign, he kept saying, our success will be our retribution. Mm-hmm. It was such a beautiful sentiment. And indeed, like he won by such a staggering, for a Republican to walk away with the popular vote, it was so, and I remember the euphoria he seemed to feel at the recognition that finally the institutions are going to be forced to recognize that he was right about all this stuff. And now seeing the foreign leaders, the same people who mocked him and sneered at him, come crawling back for a speck of his approval. For him to be so obsessed with the past, to me, is almost like to repudiate his own staggering achievements, no?
No, I mean, if you're asking me, I don't agree with that. It's yes, I agree. I agree that there's certain, generally, you want to be mature, you want to be dignified, you want to take the high road and stick with, if there's a principle and you just want to not do the petty stuff and stick to the principle and lead with that, that's fine. But I think that what happened during the 10 years of Trump, we've been living with Trump now for 10 years, and there's been 10 years of horrific attempts to take him out that have been so below the belt, so obviously wrong and illegal.
We all agree on that, right? We all agree on that?
Oh, of course. But I mean, one thing that I really want to flag.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. There must be a correction for that. You cannot just let that go. And that is part of that principle of, and that is a high road. That is a high road on behalf, first of all, of the popular vote, majority of the country who voted for this person.
Wasn't the majority. He didn't get above 50%.
Whatever. And semantics. And only 78 million or whatever. But and also for the millions, tens of millions of people who voted for him in 2016 who had that vote robbed from them by Clapper, from Comey, from Brennan. No, this must be rectified. I'm sorry, it must be.
Well, I think the one thing that Trump and MAGA kind of ignores is Bill Clinton was dogged for 8 years, right? I mean, the irony is Bill Clinton came into office and the Republicans said that he was illegitimate because he did not get 50% of the vote, right? Barack Obama came in with, he was illegitimate because he wasn't born in the country, right? Bill Clinton faced Whitewater, allegations that he murdered somebody. Vince fought. I can't believe you're too young to even remember any of this. But it was alleged, this is pre-internet.
I think I may have been alive during that.
It was pre-internet that they murdered Vince Foster and left him out in Lafayette Park.
But did they get a special counsel that hobbled his entire presidency?
Ken Starr?
Yes, but Dan,
the answer to that is yes.
From an intern?
They
sure did.
But Dan, Emma's right that, even then, there was a sense that, the institutions that mattered were then, like today, on the side of the Democrats.
No, Ken Starr was leaking stuff left and right.
The fact that Clinton got so much done despite all of this, and his first term was deeply hobbled, and he could not get stuff done because of this. That's not an illusion. That's due to the fact that the institutions, and yes, the deep state, is on the side of the Democrats.
Well, but I would respond to that. I'm not sure we can say that the reason Trump didn't get things done in his first term
It was
only
Russiagate.
Well,
No, it was his own
Let me
act of
finish.
Wow.
To some, he did not. My understanding is he did not expect to win. They weren't ready to go on day one. The
100%.
way they were the second term. Yeah, he had not won his. He had not conquered the Republican Party yet. So there were still aspects of the
Mitch
party
Ryan,
and
Paul
the government
Ryan, right.
working against him at all times. I mean, that's
100%.
not letting him off the hook or making him responsible. But I'm not sure it's. You can say it's just the deep state or something. He had not consolidated control of the party. He didn't have control over it the way he does now, where there's no internal opposition.
I mean,
So that
Jeff
was
Sessions
Okay.
applied
he
to
didn't
the.
say some of this.
Let's bring in Anthony. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us where you're calling in from and what's on your mind.
Oh,
I'm from Sacramento, California, so I think I Dan knows my opinion on the redistricting thing. But I'll say it again. So I said I'm a left-leaning independent. I voted for Kamala Harris, like I said. I regret that now for different reasons. So my opinion on the whole redistricting thing, like I said, I really think Newsom is just trying to emulate Trump. And I really don't like what Trump says on Twitter either. It's ridiculous in my opinion. So I'm consistent when I say I don't like it when Newsom does it or Trump does it. And I also feel politically homeless because I feel like the Democrat Party doesn't care about me or the Republican Party for that matter, and doesn't care about what I think. So when I hear Democrats saying for 10 years about how Trump is a quote unquote existential threat to a democracy and stuff like that. And yeah, of course Trump has done things I don't agree with, like when it came to J6 and stuff like that. But I really don't like the whole rhetoric when it comes to that. And I don't know why Democrats feel like their base is just insane. Like, do you get what I mean? Like how both parties' bases are just ridiculous.
Anthony, when you walk into the voting booth, what are your top two issues? What are you voting on?
Honestly, well, I'm only 20 years old, so I only voted. That was my first election. So probably the economy, number one. And two would probably be, I guess, immigration. I guess those two things.
So what would your preferred immigration policy be? And when you say the economy, what are you looking for in a candidate? What are you looking to hear?
First, when it comes to immigration, I think I would agree with Rahm Emanuel's thing about. I agree with Trump on sealing the border. I think that was a mistake by Biden for 4 years, and the fact that he didn't do anything to solve that. I disagree with Trump's tactics when it comes to just getting anyone they can. I obviously don't agree with the attacks on ICE officers. I think the left has failed that. I think, like, leaking their addresses, like, I don't know what that's going to do to help the situation. The economy, I don't like the tariffs. I don't like the fact that the tariff situation. I want the economy to, like, almost be like where we have, like, Obama-style policies, like where we try to, I guess you could say, put taxes on the wealthy. Or I guess you could say try to bring more jobs back to the United States, not through tariffs, but through tax reforms.
So, Anthony, is there a politician who you have your eye on for 2028 in either party?
Yeah, Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, I really admire. Wes Moore is a close second. Third is probably maybe Ro Khanna. When it comes on the right, honestly, this may sound like a weird choice, but Marco Rubio is interesting. I think the fact that he was a nobody in 2016 and is now like a star in the Trump administration is kind of interesting, but I don't know.
Okay, so Anthony speaks for millions. I think that there are millions and millions of voters out there like Anthony who like Ro Khanna, like Josh Shapiro, and like Marco Rubio. So does anybody here have any questions for Anthony? Because, like, this is exactly the kind of voter who's going to decide the 2028 election.
What is it that you like, if you had to say one thing about each of them?
I like Josh Shapiro because he's popular. I think the fact that he's run his state well is very effective. The fact that he's been fairly quiet when it comes to the whole redistricting. He said things
So
here
you
and
like
there, but I
that?
think
Yeah, that's interesting.
yes, because I don't like what Trump does when it comes to saying stuff on Twitter. It is funny, to be fair, sometimes, but it's not presidential. And I really liked Obama because the fact that he was so well spoken and so like that. I like Westmore. He's done a good job of making crime better. Ro Khanna, I like his supply side economic policy.
Okay, any other questions for Anthony? If not, I'm going to transition to crime because he brought it up and it's a great topic. Let's go to crime. All right, thank you so much, Anthony. I hope you'll come back. You really embody, I think.
Yeah,
you are like where the election is going to be decided. So keep coming back to 2A so that we all know where things are going and we can sound super smart when we go other places. Thanks so much for joining us. All right, crime. Rising crime in blue cities. Here's what's interesting. Okay, so Donald Trump took this big swing at crime in D.C., sent out the National Guard. There hasn't been a murder in 1 week. Honestly, I really want to talk about that because I just feel that, like, what is more important than keeping our babies safe? He then has suggested he's going to go out and do this in other cities, but the cities he's named are not necessarily where most of the crime is. You know, he talked about Los Angeles, I believe. He talked about Chicago, New York, Baltimore. But these are not actually the highest crime cities in America. It turns out, and this is a very interesting phenomenon, that the highest murder rates in America are actually in blue cities in red states. So, for example, Jackson, Mississippi, Birmingham, Alabama, St. Louis, Memphis, Tennessee. And it really raises a question. So first of all, we have a map of this. Let's pull up the map. And you can really see that the crime problem is not, you know, you turn on Fox News and it's always, you know, Chicago, New York, and what have you. New York's actually quite safe for a variety of reasons we can discuss. But this phenomenon of blue cities and red states is really where a lot of the crime is happening. So first of all, what explains this? Second of all, what are we to make of the fact that Trump's takeover has proven so effective? Is there something that can be learned to protect our babies more generally, or was this just a stunt that is going to end in a few days, a few weeks, is not replicable, does not have bigger lessons for us? Let's start with you, Robby. First of all, what is it like in D.C. right now? Have you noticed a significant change, and what are the lessons to be drawn from that?
Just on that chart, I too thought it was very profound when I first saw it, although then I did start thinking most cities are blue and most states are red. So it might not be that crazy that we see it that way. On the situation,
Literally
in DC,
never thought of that.
in DC. So I've given everything that's transpired so far a mixed review, and I will continue to give it a mixed review. Yes, DC's crime problem baseline was too high. It came down a little bit, but the statistics, there's a variety of reasons to distrust them. There's a lot of improvement to do. The city has a lot of dysfunction that I talked about last week in terms of not having enough police officers. So we need more police officers. I think even the most libertarian person who lives in the city, myself, would admit the city doesn't have enough police for the level of crime it has. Its crime lab got decertified. I talked about all of how that cripples the criminal justice system's ability to put people away, bad people. Certainty of punishment and swift punishment is more important than length of punishment, according to criminologists, for deterring crime. It is certainty of punishment and swiftness of punishment, and we've had a fundamental breakdown in that. Now, in terms of what Trump has done, I personally haven't noticed a huge additional police presence. I don't know if that's just me, because certainly other people have noticed it. It is good that we've had no murders. Certainly the presence of police officers in certain areas of the city, including on the metros, means there's not going to be opportunistic crime. This being a stunt because it's just going to happen for a month, well, this is the most crime-prone time of the year. It's the summer. This is when all the crime happens, at least in the city. So there's a reason for it to be going on now. But we need a long-term more police officers. We need to fix some of these problems. And I'm not sure. And then there is just a kind of, I know, some level of harassing that has taken place of people, of, you know, getting stopped, the kind of papers, please governance that I really don't like and don't want to see come to my city. And I think people who don't have as close a connection to the federal government in other cities would resent even more. So I don't I would not say this is D.C. is a very special case because it's where the federal government is headquartered. I don't know that it's a model for anyone else.
Nina, I'm very curious about how you see this. We know that Black communities disproportionately suffer as the victims of violent crime, specifically young Black men. How does this come across? I guess the question I would ask is, like, why is this not more popular, given that we are failing to protect this population at such a deep level?
We also are the victims of a legal system that was designed to never treat us fairly in the first place. So I don't see it that way. Someone who has served on local level of government, both as a councilwoman and also served a mayor. So I understand this both from the executive side and also from the legislative side. I agree with most of what Robby had to say on this. The president, yes, is this a stunt? Absolutely. Does that mean that there didn't need to be some type of shockwave? Maybe, but it's unsustainable. Where I come in is on the other side of the ledger, which is what do we do to enrich people's lives socially, economically, and politically so that we drive down crime that way. As human beings, we are imperfect, and there are some bad people in the world, period. We have laws on the books. They must be dealt with. But again, why wouldn't the president work with local government? What resources is he going to bring to bear? And also, I kind of resent the how this is being framed. Most violent crime is intra-racial. So the fact that I live in a country that takes, when violent crime is happening in Black communities, you label it Black on Black crime. But when violent crime happens in white communities or Asian communities or Hispanic people less so because they're of color, white communities, I don't hear people calling this white on white crime. Most
Right, they just call it crime. Yeah.
Most violent crime to a family, most violent crime is intraracial.
Intra, meaning it's yes, exactly. It's within.
Proximity
Yes.
within.
Yes,
So, yeah,
absolutely.
I don't like it.
Dan, you have been a real voice of reason on this. I've watched you on the morning meeting every single day.
Thank you.
And you've made the brilliant point that will be ignored by the people in power, that the Democrats should be outflanking Trump on safe cities. Walk us through the argument.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I'll answer your question too, like, I think Nina makes the point. The question is what comes after this, right? Because you can't put the National Guard and the military in all these cities, right, for the next 10 years, 5 years. So even in Washington, D.C., let's say they're there for 30 days and then Trump declares a national emergency. The question then is, what do you do next? A lot of these cities are blue. They are, kind of our voters to some extent. And there has become this expectation that, like, well, there's crime in these areas. And, I would argue that when it goes into the white neighborhoods, Nina, they care. When it doesn't, they're like, those are bad neighborhoods. If I were the Democratic Party, what I would do is say there's 3 things. One, we need more police officers in these towns. Donald Trump cut the Washington, D.C. police budget, or Republicans did, and approved it. So one, you call out his hypocrisy. 2, I think we need to change the bail laws that we supported changing the last 10 years, and we got behind district attorneys that said we're not going to prosecute a lot of small crime. And in my opinion, it is really, and I think the facts bear this out, small crime leads to bigger crime. It happened in New York City. It happened in Washington, D.C. You had these kids who roamed around who would smash and steal, sunglasses at Walgreens and razor blades and stuff like that. And then it was like, well, let's see if we can get away with cars. And then you started having more and more small crime. It was Rudy Giuliani's kind of broken windows theory, that you can't allow any of this. If I were a party that has a problem with being tough, being safe, we had the problem on immigration, I think this is a stunt by Donald Trump. And I would call out his you-know-what and say, great, we challenge you to a police, bill to make cities safe.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, Nina, I very much supported the bail reform laws at the time because of the issues you brought up. I would look at the racial disparities within prisons, and I thought, okay, this is a great way. I now think I was totally wrong about that. I think that in my desire to be right from what I considered to be ideologically at the time, ended up endangering vulnerable people and allowing crime to get worse because I wanted to be on the right side of history. And I regret that now. I think I was totally wrong, and I agree with Dan.
I think a lot of Americans
that I think that we ended up prioritizing our ideology over what would have made these neighborhoods safe. I assume you disagree with me. So explain to me why that's not right.
So I know where you're coming from, but I'm saying that in its very nature has a very anti-Black, oh, America, pay attention to Black people because they are inherently more violent than anybody else.
Wait,
But I think it's the opposite.
But what I'm saying is that we cannot police. I don't think you were wrong, but I accept the fact that you think you were wrong. And the reason why I say this, if somebody steals some sunglasses, yes, there must be a consequence. There are laws on the books. You stealing is against the law. Now, if you steal some sunglasses, though, I don't want you to go to prison forever. If I can reform you. You know, I sat on the safety committee or the judiciary committee in the Senate and had the opportunity to hear testimony as we were doing reform in Ohio, Republican, controlled, but trying to do smart criminal justice reform that Republicans and Democrats could really get behind. Not, I got two Democrats, so now I'm gonna call it bipartisan, but to really agree. And people came in and testified how they went into prison because they did something wrong, they were sentenced, but they came out worse than when they went in. And that is why I don't necessarily think you were wrong. It's the how you do it. Democrats went too far. They don't care. Most of those Democrats talking this smack have no conviction. They're just doing it for a political ploy.
Well, no, they have conviction for a safe city.
Versus really trying to get at the root of these problems and find fixes at the same time holding people accountable for what they did. If you steal sunglasses, I want to find a way to hold you accountable. But if I look at your record and that's all you've stolen, I'm not saying you should get away with it, but I'm saying I got to find a way not to put you in hardcore.
And just
So wait, first of all, I want to just say, first of all, I want to thank
I agree.
Nina for the presumption of grace that you gave me.
Absolutely, because
that's very important to me. No, I just want to underline that moment, but I do want to say, I think from my point of view, I think that we have conveyed to the kid who stole the sunglasses that what went wrong in the way progressives and Democrats talked about this was is that they did allow their fear of not being given grace or their fear of being called racist to allow them to lower the standards that resulted in the victims of crime being exposed to more crime.
And can I just add very quick? My concern...
Because they don't have a Nina to give them the presumption of grace.
Concern, and I would add my additional concern. So you got to stop the kids from stealing the sunglasses. They steal the sunglasses, you got to arrest them. I'm not going to be any bleeding heart about that stuff, but the process of apprehending that person in practice sometimes means, now we stop everyone who has sunglasses and we ask, well, where did you get your sunglasses? There's already some of that going on in D.C. with the increased police of people on their own property saying, why are you smoking it? Well, I'm on my own porch. Oh, okay, never mind. It grates people. It disproportionately falls on Black people, poor people, but it grates everybody when it happens.
You're right.
And that is a how you do policing that matters to me as a libertarian.
Well, but I mean,
I accept that. I agree.
With technology now, the biggest problem has been that you had all this crime where police will say, we will not arrest people because the district attorneys will not prosecute them.
Yeah.
Right, and that became so pervasive in so many blue cities.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, the reason Democrats were totally terrified of saying anything is they were afraid of being called racist.
Yeah.
And we lost so much of this country. We've begun to lose blue cities, right? To me, on this issue, so Nina, you disagree?
I wish we need a special on this because you know what? The Democratic Party is historically the most racist party on the face of the earth. They were the party of chattel slavery, period. So that is a fact. The problem is that Democrats used identity as a blunt force object. But when you come to communities like mine, and to Robby's point, poorer communities, because the system was written for those who wrote it, which is the most affluent. If we're going to deal with race and really talk about anti-blackness and racism and sexism and all the other types of bigotry that human beings put forward, Democrats got to get serious about it. Why are you afraid of being called a racist if you're not a racist? You have to look at, though, the factors and the variables, both present day and historically.
Vanina, this isn't about race. This is about crime.
No, baby.
This is the problem.
No,
this is about
Dan.
crime in urban cities.
It is about race. I wish it wasn't.
We're going to lose voters if we make it about race.
Oh my God. You know what, Batya, let's go on to something else. It is easy for you to sit there and say that it is not about race when black men are overrepresented in a system that was designed not to treat black people like equals. And then when you add poverty onto it, it is always about race for black people.
The black community
we
wants
live like this. Let me tell you something.
This isn't a white issue.
I was a Cleveland City Councilwoman. Okay, so I understand. When I talk to Big Mama and Big Papa, drug boys on the corner, they want them off so they can sit on their porch. But also what Big Mama and Big Papa don't want is police officers to come in and shoot up the community or rough up their kids or their grandkids or their
I think
neighbors unfairly, which is what
in agreement
Robbie
about
was
this.
laying out.
There's one point that hasn't been mentioned I think that I've gleaned from this DC thing, because he's been doing this thing with the National Guard or whatever for exactly 1 week. And like crime seems to have, like that's made a really big impact just in 1 week.
Huge.
So, but 1 week is a very short period of time, which indicates to me, again, just an idiot looking at what's going on passively, but I gather from that this is obviously a problem that's perpetrated by probably just a small amount of people. I think it seems like, because a week isn't a very long time, you can't round up 1 million people in a week, you know? So this seems like if it's been solved basically in a week, or the lid has been put on it in a week, it's got to be, I don't know, maybe like 100 people? And like who are producing the most?
Depends what category of crime you're talking
about. So we know that they've
about.
arrested 200 people over the last week,
Right, so 200.
independent of the immigration raids. 100 of them were within the most violent wards, Ward 7 and Ward 8. And basically, this was a very interesting angle. I'm curious what you both make of this. The media reporting on this was atrocious.
No, but
so the Washington Post put out a map, and this map was purporting to show that, he said he's going to arrest the criminals, but actually all of the arrests happened in the most affluent areas. And they had this map that they looked very, auspicious. It looked like it was data-driven, but at the bottom it said the map was created based on reporters, social media posts, et cetera, et cetera. And it was off by 100% of where the arrest had happened.
That's when Elon runs a poll. Is Elon the greatest human being ever? And it's just me saying yes over and over again.
It was literally like Twitter is not real life. And Dan, I guess my question is
can I just finish?
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Just for 1 second, which is you've plummeted the crime rate in just dealing with crime for exactly 1 week. That indicates to me that it's got to be roughly, let's say, between 100 and 200 people. I don't think anybody in this country wants.
Go ahead.
Okay, that was very distracting. I don't think anyone in this country wants some sort of like Ruby Ridge situation. I think that if you can take away like the 150 top most violent people or most commonly caught in crimes people out of every city, you could probably reduce the crime rate by a
combination of that and the deterrence effect of having so many
Well, I was going to say,
law
that's it.
enforcement.
It's not like people walk around with a scarlet A on their head saying, like, I am the violent criminal. Oh, let me, take you away.
No, of course, but
I think
1 week of law enforcement finds them.
Well, no, I don't know about that, because it's not the person that you're worried about who necessarily committed the crime. Yes, you want them, but it's the next person. You're right, a show of force, and Robby's saying the same thing. By having people on subway platforms or metro platforms with guns, you're like, I probably won't try to steal that bag, right? If they're in the neighborhood and they're on your corner, you're like, I may not try to carjack somebody because right down there is like a tank and 50 police officers, or National Guardsmen.
It's not even. I think it's repeat offenders. I think repeat offenders need to be taken
Of
off.
course, it's repeat
all of
offenders.
the above.
It's both of those
and
things.
I think the challenge is, what do you do once the National Guard leaves, or the other 1,000 cities in this country? Because unless we're going to become Baghdad, you can't put the army in all these neighborhoods on an ongoing, permanent basis.
That's just exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Quintessential liberty-safety trade-off. I mean, this is the project of civilization of society, is deciding how much we want of one and how much of the other. I mean, this is a very philosophical question. I think it should be, I want effective policing, and people in low-income or disadvantaged neighborhoods, they want effective policing. They feel like they haven't had good policing,
Correct.
so they're resentful of the policing, understandably. So we want effective policing. I think, again, a swift system with certainty of punishment. Punishment doesn't have to be rest of your life. To your point about people being in prison for the rest of their lives, and then what can we even do with them? They age out of an age where they're even a threat to any society. Certainty of punishment would deter, I think, some criminal action. And then we need a social order for the teenage bad behavior, which we're especially seeing in D.C., which is really of a different category than this. Yeah, and in other places where you just have, you could, with more of a system of education or some programs, or, I'm the last person who wants to throw money into like liberal social programs, but for this category of people
Robbie.
committing.
Robbie. I'm winning Robbie over y'all. Two-way.
Well, when COVID shut them all down, then I had something to be angry about.
You're winning a lot of people over today, I have to say. Okay, so what's funny is right now, the latest was that a lot of these red state governors started sending their National Guard to bolster what was happening
Ohio.
in D.C. They wanted to jump on the bandwagon. And suddenly I had this very out-of-body experience where I was on CNN on the Abby Phillip panel, and suddenly they started demanding to know, well, why aren't they sending the National Guard into the blue cities? And I was like, oh, wait, now y'all support like the National Guard being brought into, and it just felt like this, moment where, again, like Trump had come up with an idea, they all said no, it turned out to be kind of effective, and suddenly they're like, well, why isn't it happening more? Or we support it, but not the way Trump is doing it. And there's a lot of issues like this where it's like, well, he comes up with an idea, and then, they all call him, fascist for doing it, and then it turns out it's kind of like a genius idea, and then they have to come up with it, but we don't like the way he's doing it. Anyway, the latest is tonight he's going, this I think is, I can't tell if it's genius or insane, he's going on a ride along.
Yes.
It's
genius and insane. It is absolutely.
So Dan,
both.
what are you expecting to see tonight on the Trump ride?
I mean, oh my gosh. First off, we were debating off air before we came on, will he have a suit on and a tie? Will he have like a bomber jacket? What kind of a hat will he have on? Look, it's genius in that it draws attention. It puts him on the side of law and order, of security, of like going out and supporting people who are on the front lines. Where I think it's kind of crazy is it is these people are there temporarily. It is the U.S. military. They are not police, again, in the long term. And like, I would imagine he'll be on Fox News, and like, it is a stunt, right? It is a stunt on top of a stunt. But it doesn't change the fact that most people feel that crime is a problem in their communities. They want it dealt with, just like he had the idea that people wanted to deal with illegal immigration before like the rest of the country realized, or a lot of Democrats realized, like, oh shoot, this is actually a real issue that real people care about. And so I think you're right. And what was fascinating to me is, and Robbie, you and Nina, maybe you as well, a lot of Capitol Hill staff, right, lives on the Hill, and they've been complaining for years, the last few years, about how unsafe it is. Walking home at night, I know people take taxis like 4 blocks, they take Ubers quickly. They were largely silent the first 24 hours he did this. There was not this huge pushback of he's like authoritative, he's great. Then the base kind of started chirping, and like their bosses, and they were like, oh my God, this is outrageous and we've got to stop it. But like their first instinct was kind of like, man, if you can make this safe and I can walk home and I don't have to spend money on Ubers just trying to get home at night safely, or if I go on a date and I want to walk home, not like have to take a cab home. So the party lost its mind again. And it's all about him and process and not the issue.
So, Nina, what is the photo op that Trump is hoping for tonight? And what is the photo op he's likely to get?
Like in the garbage truck.
Yeah,
That's the photo op he's looking for. I do agree with Dan. This is a stunt. It's not sustainable. The president, to me, this is a cover-up for the things that he's not doing. Where's the Epstein list? President Donald J. Trump. Where is that?
You don't find this more important than the Epstein list?
You cut SNAP. You cut Medicaid and all those other kind of programs that will lift people up and help these communities maybe be, have less crime because there's an economic connection to this. Not that you excuse crime no matter what somebody's economic level, but there is a nexus between being in the poor communities and not seeing a way out and not having the opportunity to be able to live out your greatest greatness in crime. So if the president really wanted to be magnanimous and really do something about it, he would look at this from both ends of it and not just think that sending in police or National Guard is going to solve this problem. It's not going to solve the problem.
Batya, I bet the photo stunt that the photo that he wants or the video he wants is walking down a street in like Anacostia or one of the low, predominantly minority neighborhoods where people come out and shake his hand and say thank
That's
you.
what I think
If
he
you
wants.
get, if he walks down a
Is he
street,
gonna get it, Dan?
Yeah, I think he will. I think people will be great. I think if he went
Gonna do a little research ahead of time.
Yes, but I mean, I think if he went,
That's the voter registry.
That part.
I think he.
I mean,
he
Dan,
would.
Robbie.
I think if he went to like U Street and 14th Street, he'd have to take cover.
He'd have
'cause
sandwiches thrown at him.
People would be throwing sandwiches at him and cursing.
Are
but
those like nice white progressive neighborhoods?
Yeah, they're very like.
I don't think this is out of the ordinary. Before Donald J. Trump became President Trump, I mean, just listen to hip hop. Just listen. I mean, it wasn't like he was popular before he became president.
Yeah.
So to something that Dan is saying, I don't necessarily disagree that he will be a magnet. It's all superficial, though, is what I'm saying. But he.
So, but Emma asked you a really good question. I want you to phrase the question again.
I asked you while you were talking, but whatever. You were on the soapbox and you were in your flow.
Okay.
So because you had said that this is like a distraction, and that she's trying to deflect from the more important things, and then you said the
other things.
But I feel like, and I tend to agree with you, like there's so many like bread and circuses that like people do in politics to distract us when they're not doing things that are actually helpful to our lives. But I feel like in this instance, actually, this is way more, like you actually will feel this immediately, as opposed to the Epstein list. Which
I'm not saying it's not important.
nebulous.
I get it. I'm just saying politicians have a way of not dealing the things they don't want to deal with. Then they put another crisis out there. Safety is always a concern. Who doesn't want to be safe? Yeah. I'm not saying it's more important.
I would love if like all the crime in my neighborhood just stopped.
I would
just-
too.
Everybody would.
We got to deal with human nature, though. Then we got to, it's human beings.
So important.
Well, safety and national security.
I
and
just
local
feel that
safety are the two.
crime is, I think for a long time I saw crime from the point of view of the perpetrators, and now I see it from the point of view of the victims, and somehow these gangs of teenagers, because I am terrified of gangs of teenagers, and the idea—
I just hate young people.
The idea that they are robbing
But I hate old people
grannies
more.
is like, I just feel now like—
What you gonna do when you get there? Huh? There's only two ways out, right? or get seized.
We distracted Batya.
I'm sorry, Batya.
I'm not to be distracted. Let's end on a lighter note. I've just been informed from our producer extraordinaire, Chelsea, that Kamala Harris is going on a 107 days international book tour.
Say this again.
And we're all going to go around, and each person's going to come up with one adjective for this.
Wait, I want to just hear this again. She's doing what?
Former Vice President Kamala Harris is going on
An international
a 107-day, which is the name of her book,
Yep.
international book tour.
You have to be careful with the word international, because the only like internations that she's checking out is like Toronto and Canada and London.
Is that for real?
How can she keep that up
I
for
saw the book list.
107 days?
I was trying to plan when I was going to go. Sorry?
How can she keep that up for 107 days if it's only 2 cities?
I mean,
No, just the only 2 cities where she's exiting the other
But
country.
I thought the tour was 107 days long.
Oh, I don't know.
Is it not?
I don't. This is the first that I have heard. Look, I think I will go back to what we started this today. I think it was.
Bring it home,
A
Dan.
recent conversation we had. All this talk about Gavin Newsom. You know who you haven't heard his name mentioned? Kamala Harris.
Because she's running?
No, because she doesn't do anything.
No.
Right?
She's going on the book tour. You have to
Wow, so I
understand.
mean, that's the thing. I will be so curious when she comes out how she talks about everything. Everything going on right now, everything she did, the past, and what she thinks for the future.
I don't know if you're perceiving this right now. I don't know if you can sense it, but this is the campaign.
For president.
Yes.
Is the
Yeah, I think
campaign in the room with her right now?
I think she's running for sure.
She will be crushed if she runs.
God help,
I don't know about that.
She's gonna be crushed.
God help us,
that.
two-way.
All right. Another wonderful, wonderful episode. Thank you so much. And thank you for the vigor plus sensitivity that we were all able to bring to this really important conversation. I'm so grateful for the group chat and for all of you. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.